Take your goddamn seats, boys. We've got some more things to talk about that are very important, like wave management. So this is finally the first class where we can actually talk about some more advanced concepts. So today's topic is a crucial topic that will be a part of every laner's game, in every game they play, known as wave management. You need to know wave management if you want to rank up and dominate the opposition, or just not to be bled out dry by someone who knows what this is. This is an early/mid game concept, as managing waves generally doesn't do anything in the mid/late game. This technique is more important to know in the top and bot lane, as those lanes are so long, they matter more. The time to create a wave control or control waves is a lot longer than the mid lane. But mid laners, that does not mean that you should not learn these techniques, as it will still work in your lane. Lastly, jungles and support, learning this technique aren't as helpful for you guys, but this topic can definitely help in certain situations when you need to take care of a wave, so you can understand what you want to do with it. Wave management is the technique of obviously managing a wave to do a certain thing that will usually benefit you in some type of way. Some people already know how to do some of these techniques, but don't generally know when is a good time to use all of them, and why using these techniques will make the mistakes of the enemy even more detrimental to them. Before we can even talk about why these techniques are useful, let's just go over all the basics on how to do them. The three wave management techniques are fast pushing, slow pushing, and freezing. Fast pushing and slow pushing are easier to do and understand, but freezing is a little more complicated. But let's go over the two styles of pushing. So first we have fast pushing. Fast pushing is a wave management technique where you push in a wave as fast as possible by using autos and abilities. Next, we have slow pushing. So slow pushing is a wave management technique where you push in the wave as slow as possible by last hitting minions for their gold and not touching the wave for the most part. You need to auto it sometimes, and we will talk about a little bit more about slow pushing, because this is not only thing you need to do, because obviously you have another person in a lane that you have to interact with, and you need to understand that they can change the wave state as well. And we will talk about wave control, wave state, wave priority, and all that stuff. Moving on, we have freezing. Lastly, we have freezing. Freezing is a wave management technique where you hold a certain amount of minions at a certain point in the lane, making it not go forward or backwards, basically freezing it at that point. To accomplish this, here is a quick little graphic showing you how many minions the enemy generally needs to have more of for a freeze to happen. You can see how the closer it is to your tower, the more minions the enemy needs to have in order to stop in that direction. So I'm not saying like they just need 4 minions, they need 4 extra minions. So let's say there's a full wave coming, there's 6 minions here, 6 minions there. They need 10 minions for the wave to not move in like this general area. That's kind of what you have, to plus 4 minions, you know, plus 3 minions, plus 2 minions. And as it gets closer to your tower, the more minions you need. But why is that though? Why is that even a thing? The basic answer is because your minions will arrive faster than the enemy, making the enemy's wave take more damage while the new wave is coming, generally pushing it back towards the enemy. So the closer it is to your tower, the more of a buffer the enemy needs to have to tank that damage the new arrive wave does. And that is the 3 techniques you can do with a wave. But now let's try to understand why we want to use these techniques and what kind of situations are good and bad for them. So let's talk about wave states. So a wave state is just generally what is happening with the wave, what is going on with it, you know? Is it pushing towards you, pushing towards them? How fast is it pushing towards you? How fast is it pushing to the blah, 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 blah. There are 7 different type of wave state possibilities. We have slow pushing into you, slow pushing into them, fast pushing into you, fast pushing into them, frozen near their tower, frozen near your tower, or it is neutral, meaning it isn't moving in any general direction just yet. It's in the middle of the wave or in the middle of the lane, and it's not moving in a general direction just yet. Let's start off by talking about the very beginning of the game and the very first waves. In order to start doing a wave management technique, we need to get some type of wave prio. We talked about wave prio and what it is in in the beginning guide to laning phase video, so go check that out if you want to know exactly what it means. But for the most part, to get wave prio, we need an advantage in some type of aspect. Range, wave count, HP, mana, level, something that makes us have more strength than the enemy so they back off and let us control the wave. If that is not possible for you with the champion that you have, you will probably give wave control for a while, which isn't terrible, as long as we remember what those wave management techniques are. So for the early game, 2 wave states are the most powerful or detrimental to you. Slow pushing into them, or slow pushing into you. Let's first talk about slow pushing into the enemy. In order for us to do this, like for us to slow push a wave into someone, we generally just need to last hit minions and not really touch the wave for the most part. But we still need the wave to somehow get established that way, if it's neutral. The more the enemy hits the wave, the less likely the slow push will begin going towards them. So the best way to begin one is first having wave prio to make the enemy not hit the wave as much. And secondly, hit the wave just a tiny bit more than the enemy. So basically, you can see how I have wave prio here because the enemy is a little bit lower than me. So that means they're going to back off a little bit more because they don't want to get damaged even more. So I have wave prio, meaning I can basically space them away from me so they don't attack the wave as much. But also, if they do attack the wave, I need to make sure that I still attack the wave so it pushes towards them, so it doesn't stop slow pushing into them. I want you to realize a very simple rule that you should follow when it comes down to wave management. The person who has wave priority should have wave control. Simply, whoever has an advantage in any way should have the ability to control the wave. Trying to control a wave without wave prio is a death sentence, and we will talk about that in a bit. So, in order to establish a slow push into the enemy with a neutral wave state, we need to have prio. Thankfully, having a bigger wave helps that, but that does not solidify it. To keep the slow push going, we need to base the enemy away from the wave to make them hit it less, and whenever they do hit it, try to hit the wave back. Eventually, the wave will get so big that the enemy won't be able to stop it from crashing into the tower, and they won't be able to stop the slow push. The slow push will it's just too difficult for them to stop it. And that is basically how you create a slow push. Now, in what context is this powerful or detrimental to you? This is where wave prio comes back into play. If we have wave prio in some type of way, we can play more aggressively and be able to create a bigger advantage. This is when we can really start punishing the enemy for stepping up too close, and if they do it too many times, they can make the biggest mistake possible, which is dying. If the enemy dies during a slow push, not only do we get 300 gold, they lose the entire wave that was slow pushing into them, and maybe even lose some turret platings. This is why it is extremely powerful and can create a massive gold lead in the early game. But this can also be detrimental to you. And why is that? Why can this be detrimental? If we do not have wave prio, like in this situation, and the wave is pushing into them, they can slowly let us bleed out minions, because if we ever step up, they will punish us. Wave prio is the biggest factor on when a technique is good for you, but that goes both ways. Let's talk about if the enemy is slow pushing into us now. So, if the enemy is slow pushing into us, the question we want to ask ourselves is if they have wave prio. Do they have a big enough advantage that they have wave control? If they do, the best option is to usually let them have the control and let the wave push into us. Another option is to fight them, but it really isn't the best option because it's also harder to do because we don't have really good wave clear, and also we are most likely going to lose the trade because they have more minions than us. And again, it is way riskier because just like before, if we die during this slow push, we give them 300 gold, we lose the wave, and maybe even turret plating. So that's why it's not really worth it if they have wave prio. Okay, but how about if they don't have wave prio? This means we should have wave prio, meaning we have wave control, and we have a few options we can do. We can let them slow push, like continue this slow push that they're doing to happen and farm for free. We can cancel out their slow push by hitting the wave more and starting our own wave push, or we can let it go closer to our tower and eventually freeze. Each of these options get progressively better for you, but the better the option, the more of an advantage you need to have. So you can see how this option, the first option is like, okay, they're just pushing into us. Let's just let them push into us. The second option is, okay, I have some wave prio, meaning I can push it back into them and they can't really do anything about it. The third option is the best, because if they ever step up, they're probably going to die. The more wave prio that you have, the bigger the advantage that you have, the better the technique you can use. Because, like, think about this. Trying to start a freeze with a little HP advantage will not work. And letting them crash a wave into a tower while they are super low is just plain dumb. Why are we doing that? Why are we letting them do that? Figuring out what is better is all up to your observation skills, and basically what you think is a better advantage and how much of an advantage that you have. Let's look at an example from Nemesis on how he uses wave control and wave prio to make this Pantheon's life absolutely miserable. So in the beginning of this clip, Nemesis is going to establish some type of wave priority so he can have wave control. So Nemesis is going to start poking at the Pantheon a bit. You can see that he's poking him. Nemesis has wave control because he has wave priority. So what does Nemesis want to do with this wave? Nemesis allows this wave to push into him, even though he's going to miss the level 2 advantage and the level 3 advantage. But since Nemesis has wave prio, he is able to control the wave to keep pushing into him and slowly dwindle down the HP of the Pantheon. So as this clip goes on, you're going to see that the wave is still pushing into him, but anytime Pantheon steps up, he's going to punish him for all the positioning mistakes he's going to make. And eventually, he's going to have such a big advantage that Nemesis is going to bleed him out. After the wave crashes into Nemesis' tower and then it bounces back, Nemesis is still going to have wave control during this whole time. And after 6 minutes of doing this wave control, Nemesis has a 30 CS gold lead. You can see how it just destroys someone. It can completely destroy their gold game. So you can see how these two wave states of slow pushing into you and slow pushing into them can be super powerful or super detrimental to you. This type of wave management technique is easier to do in the early game because the wave clear of champions are usually extremely low, so it is hard to stop one. But as the game goes on and champions start getting items, fast pushing becomes a lot more powerful. This usually happens around level 7 plus, where champions have a substantial amount of wave clear where they don't have to worry about freezes or slow pushes. First, let's talk about why fast pushing is less powerful in the early game in most cases. If we remember what happens when we have a slow push, we create a massive wave that crashes into the enemy tower. This causes the wave to bounce back, meaning that the wave will start naturally pushing into you again. If we fast push a wave into a turret, first, we aren't creating that big wave, which makes us immediately lose the possibility of making the enemy lose a massive wave if they ever die. Secondly, so if we push the wave too fast into the enemy tower, the next wave state will become neutral, which is not very helpful in a case. This happens because we push the wave so fast, the tower had enough time to finish killing all the minions in the wave, so the next wave does not get backed up near their tower. The wave will now meet in the middle and become neutral. A neutral wave state isn't helpful because it means that the wave can start pushing in either direction. If it starts pushing to the enemy, it's worse because if we aren't in lane, we will lose minions, and as it slowly pushes into them. If it starts pushing into us, it's better because we will lose less minions. Keeping it down to a flip of a coin is not very cash money, so that's why fast pushing a wave early in the early game really isn't that helpful. But there are some reasons why we want to fast push, because sometimes fast pushing can actually be beneficial in the early game. So the main reason we want to fast push sometimes is usually so we can back a row. This makes it crash into the enemy tower, and they should stay there. If the enemy does not stay there, they will lose minions, and it just gives us free time, basically. It gives us free time to do whatever the hell we want. The other reason that you might want to fast push waves is if you want to have a lane with less interaction. For the most part, if we fast push every single wave that comes into lane, there won't be enough time for the enemy to have an interaction with us. So every time we find a wave, we're gonna fast push it, and then we'll just back off. Fast push, back off. Fast push, back off. This can make it good if you are a champion that naturally just scales and wins the game just off of just minions. This general technique isn't the best either, because obviously slow pushing is overall the better technique in the early game because of the heavy gold leads that you can create with it. So let's talk about why it gets better as the game goes on. Why does fast pushing gets better as the game goes on towards the mid game? The main reason is because of the dynamics of what you want to do in the game. In the early game, we stay in lane, and that's kind of it. We just kind of stay in lane in the early game. Most of it is just farming, maybe killing our laner sometimes, but mostly we stay in lane, we farm, we get levels, we get gold, we get items, and then bada bing, we hit mid game. In the mid game, we want to leave the lane more. We have objectives to go to, we have jungle skirmishes to fight, and more items to help us kill more enemies. So fast pushing is the easiest and fastest way to give us lane priority. Lane priority is given to the person who has more clearing power to push the wave in, so they move first in fights and or objectives. Moving first can be a big advantage, and that's why we want to do it more often in the mid game. Last wave management technique we have is freezing, which is more complicated one. Freezing can be a super powerful technique, but keeping a freeze for a long time can be pretty difficult. We already explained how to do it, but why would we ever want to freeze? Freezing stops the wave at a certain point in the lane, but this requires a lot of wave prio, a pretty big advantage to really be beneficial. Because like, think about this, if I was at 30% HP and then Zai is at 20, how the hell am I ever going to freeze this guy? Like, he's just gonna force it in. He's gonna force it in because I'm gonna be scared to die as well. So freezing the wave near our tower requires the enemy to step up further to get CS, putting them in a really troubling spot. Do they step up and get all in, or do they not step up and slowly lose more gold? The choice is theirs. This technique will slowly bleed out the enemy, making the gold gap bigger and bigger. The longer we keep it up, the worse it will be for them. But how about if someone freezes on us? Option number one, the best possible outcome is to get our jungler to help us unfreeze the wave. This in turn makes the jungler spend his time and probably will not happen in most elos. Sadly, they'll probably not help you. So let's talk about the next option. The next option is to basically bait the enemy into hitting the wave by positioning in a way where they hit the wave and you. If they are dumb and hit the wave, it will break the freeze. Because as we remember, they need a certain amount of minions in order for the wave to freeze. If they ever damage the minions too much, the wave will become unfrozen and will push back into you. So you can save yourself. Let's talk about the other options. So those were the first two options. The next option we have is to forcefully push the wave in. This is definitely the most riskiest option, but what's worse? Dying to get the wave back to normal, or being frozen on for 5 minutes? But there is one more option. The last option is to just take the L and go for a back. Take the L, go for a back, TP if you have it, and since you just backed, you should have wave prio and push the wave in. So basically, try not to put yourself in a situation where you can get frozen on. But last thing about freezing though, just like slow pushing, this technique becomes less powerful as the game goes on because of the same reasons why slow pushing becomes weaker. We would rather get out of lane. Now, you know everything you need to know about wave management, but before we end our class today, let's go over some practice scenarios. Yay, practice scenarios. Getting better at wave management is all about understanding what you can do in each situation. The game will give you one situation out of the 1,000 possible situations in the game. So let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about some common ones as well. You are currently in the early game, and a wave just bounced back from your tower. None of you or your opponent has any type of advantage in items or levels, but the enemy is about 50% HP, while you are about 75% HP. Let's ask ourselves, how can I make the enemy laner's life miserable? Slow push. You can't freeze anymore. It just bounced back, because if you know anything about bounce back, it's going to push back into them anyways. They need a certain amount of minions. That's not going to happen. So our best option is to do a slow push. Thankfully, having a bounce back from your tower makes it easier to set up one, and now you can play more aggressively because we have established that we should have wave pile because we have more HP than them. So it's a very easy and simple situation if you think about it. But let's go back and talk about a more tricky one. So we are still in the early game. None of you or your opponent has any advantage in items or levels, but both of you guys are currently at 30% HP. The wave is currently starting to slow push into the enemy. What kind of options do we have? Well, let's talk about this. So, since no one has any particular wave pile because we're both 30% HP, wave control is not really be able to fought for. The best possible option that we have is to fast push the wave into the enemy tower so we can recall and get all our HP back. If we just fast push the wave into them, they can't really hold the wave, they can't really freeze it because we're in the early game, they're only at 30% HP, like they can't really freeze it on us. The only thing that they can really do is try to kill us when we try to fast push the wave in. So basically, fast push the wave in so we get our back. And basically, the first one to do a back will have a better time in the lane, because if we think anything about what happens with waves, when we push a wave into a tower, what does happen? It bounces back, and it's better because it puts us in a position where we can get wave prio again, because we come back with items, we come back with HP, we come back with mana, we come back with everything that makes us stronger. So, the scenario is basically almost the same. We're in the early game. We are currently slow pushing a wave into the enemy. We took a bad trade. None of you or the opponent has an advantage in items or levels, but the opponent is at 70% HP and you are at 50% HP. What is the best possible thing to do? Technically, we don't have wave prio because we are lower than the enemy, meaning we shouldn't have wave control. Thankfully, the slow push we started makes it difficult, you know? It makes it very difficult for the enemy to do what they want with the wave. But we need to do something quick, because if we don't, they might be able to freeze it on us. We want to put ourselves in a position where we don't give up wave prio for free for the rest of the laning phase. So our best option is to forcefully push this wave into the enemy so we can recall. But why is this okay though? Wouldn't the enemy just come up and make us take more damage when we do this? Well, let's think about this. If we forcefully push this wave into their turret, the wave will crash. We're gonna take more damage. What are we gonna do after this anyways? We're gonna recall. So who cares how much damage we take? We're recalling anyways. That's why I say we can forcefully push the wave. Because if we think about it, we're only at 50% HP. There's no way this Zyra's gonna kill us. But that's basically all I have for class today. If you enjoyed today's class and you learned something new, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. But now that class is over, does anyone have a VOD review that they would like to share, or they have some questions, micro or macro questions of League that they are confused about or that they need help with? Or if you have any questions about wave management and wave control.